Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another Monday Moohead Radio program. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine, and today is going to be an interesting program. I know what we're coming off of here with the Browns, but I wanted to start out the program by personally apologizing to Amari Cooper. Obviously, the problem with doing a very emotional post-game program, and I've been doing them for 19 years, is that sometimes you say something that you kind of hyperbolize and you go way overboard with. And there were people who were wondering, why I was all over Amari Cooper. But what I said was uncalled for. And it's not what I think. It's not what I believe. I'm not going to go over the comments. It's up on, believe me, I leave every single one of my archives up. And it was said in the beginning of the program in the heat of the disappointment that all Browns fans were feeling. And in the 24 hours since then, obviously a lot of people are pointing a lot of fingers, and I want to kind of get to the bottom of that. But first things first, why did I verbally attack Amari Cooper? He caught 9 passes for 102 yards. He had a good game. He looked good. He was getting open. Why? Why that player? And I'm going to have to resort to, hello, Marlux's Scythe. How you doing? To sharing a screen here, and we know that this is a little bit interesting, but I'm going to go ahead and see if I can put this up and share this with everybody. All right. What you're seeing is a freeze frame, all right, but I can make this move and do all kinds of nifty things. And I'm not going to bother playing audio on this. I'm going to bring this back manually so you can see exactly what happened on the onside kick that pissed me off so much. All right. To start out, the Browns are expecting the onside kick to come to the right side of the field. All right. And if you look down here, there are all of 3 men. All right. There are 4 men over here. All right. And this is all going to be part and parcel of the conversation today. And it's so much easier when I look at things instead of the heat of the moment, when I get to look at a play over and over again. So what they're doing is they're pretending like they're going to kick over here. And the guy kind of swings his right foot around and kicks the ball this way. And I'm just going to play it very quickly and stop it. All right. The ball is heading between 2 players here who have to pick up a man to block. All right. So we will then. All right. Now we see clearly which men are going to be blocked. And only one man, I'm circling him, Amari Cooper. It is solely his responsibility because he's a wide receiver. He has the best hands on the team to get that ball. This is an unblocked player, okay? Because as we said, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? I'm trying to make this simple so that fans can understand what happened. All right, now I'm going to go manually. And I want you to watch Amari Cooper versus this special teams player for the Jets. And again, Amari Cooper starts at about the 49-yard line, and he's at about the 38-yard line. By the time the ball starts arriving, He's still basically on the 49-yard line. He's up to the 40-yard line, so he's gained 2 yards on this play, all right, between he and the distance of the ball. To keep watching, now he's at the 42-yard line, and Amari Cooper is really between the 48 and the 47. He's cut down another half a yard. Let's keep it going. By now, he's on the 43-yard line, and Amari Cooper is standing at the 47-yard line, which means he's only moved 2 yards in this direction, and his position is already, and I'm on my tippy toes, and I've got my knees bent. That is not a forward motion movement, as opposed to the Jets defender, who is already starting to go into a dive mode. Now he's really on top of the ball. And you're going to see at the last minute, Amari Cooper tries to lunge, but kind of like Ben Roethlisberger lunged after the ball in our playoff win against them, in a way that makes me think, and anyone with brains who's watching, that he's not actively going for the ball. He doesn't want to mix it up. Here we go. Now this guy dives on the ball, and he's back on his heels. Now, how can his stance be this straight if he's supposed to be moving forward, diving for this ball? The answer is this guy wants it more than this guy. All right? He's got his hands on the ball. Amari Cooper is still upright with his knees bent. He never hit the ground. All right? Let's continue. He goes sideways to avoid contact. You see Amari Cooper's helmet here, but the Jet is already on the ground fighting after the ball. And the rest, as they say, is history, as Amari Cooper lays on the ground while the deciding possession is decided. Show it to you in real time as I saw it and you saw it. Now, if you think for a minute that Amari Cooper wanted that football, you're fucking crazy. All right? And I'm pretty well done with this. I'm going to have to go back and stop the screen. All right. So, and, you know, we're going to get there. But I believe that being responsible when I say something on a program that I regret saying with the intensity that I said it, that I want people to understand why I said it. All right? Now, the second one that I want to share with you is the Denzel Ward and Grant Delpit situation on the 66-yard pass that everybody, of course, was sick to their stomach when they saw. And we will again share a screen, and this time I will find it hopefully quickly. All right, and we'll share this screen. And this is the headline. It wasn't my coverage on a 66-yard TD, but I'll take the blame for it. All right. So that's the way on Cleveland.com this would explain what happened. All right. I wanted to show you the actual play, which I'm going to do now. And I think there's an interesting part of this. And pardon me if this is taking longer than I want it to, but okay, here we go. And we're going to share this. All right. We've seen the play and we know how it goes, but this is an outlined coverage, and you're going to see as we move this slowly forward how everything developed, and I'll let you decide for yourselves who did what. And I'm just going to run the freaking play. All right. So you have a late flat pattern here that's going out this way for the sidelines, and his defender is making sure that nothing gets behind him so that it's his responsibility, although he's not very close to the receiver, that this doesn't pick up any significant yardage. And here is Denzel Ward, which would appear that he's covering this wide receiver. This is Grant Delpit. All right. I'm not sure that Denzel Ward says he's going to take the blame for it, although it wasn't his coverage. And he had an explanation. And he explained his coverage in front of the live cameras, and we'll go into that for a minute. But of course, the end result is guy walking into the end zone with a touchdown. All right. So,
Dad,
and let me again just get out of this and stop sharing and see if I can get back to y'all. Okay. According to Denzel Ward, he specifically says, I was playing the flat in the cloud cover 2 coverage on that play. He said in that instance, Davis was supposed to get past him while he manned the flat, and that he shouldn't have vacated his area to try to save the blown coverage. As it was, tight end Tyler Conklin ran a late flat route to occupy Ward. I don't think Ward was occupied at all, but again, he is telling us that it was a cloud cover 2 coverage. I got to take his word for it. Grant Delpit, on the other hand, who would appear to be the guy who is to blame in this whole circumstance, his answer was not quite as smooth. He noted that there were 2 possible coverages on the play. He said several times the expression communication error. And when asked to explain, he said, I'm not going to play the blame game with my teammates. Likewise, Kevin Stefanski said he would not break down coverage responsibilities because it's not constructive. All right. So, I'm a problem solver. I'm not a finger pointer. And fans want to point fingers, and I'm going to give you some examples. They're pointing fingers at Kevin Stefanski and Nick Chubb for not just getting down with the ball. They could have just taken 4 knees and won the game, all of that stuff. Kevin Stefanski, for his part, in today's press conference said, I wished I had told him to do that. But let's be honest about this. Scoring in that situation would have put the Browns up by 14 if the extra point had gone through. And even at 13 points up with 1:57 left and the team with no timeouts, doesn't seem like such a bad place to be in. And I'm not going to be sitting here. John Brown, if you want to be on the air, wave your hand in front of the camera, please. Good. I do appreciate it. John, you've seen a lot.
Mr. Moo, good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. It's been a long time. How are you?
Been too long of a time. And when I saw the end result of that game yesterday, I had to listen to your rant. You had me dying. As you know, I don't follow the Browns as much as I used to, but you're the first person I thought of when I saw that. In what year did you start this show? 05?
04.
04.
I was putting all of the pieces together. So yeah, and it's been a long. I take that back. It was in 03 that I started putting the pieces together, and then it was the 04 when the whole thing came to fruition.
So that was my junior year of high school.
Yeah, I know. Is that crazy? John's from Youngstown, or Warren, I should say, right?
Same thing. But Warren. But just how many times have we all called in Monday morning? Same old song and dance since 2004. That's almost 20 years. That's 18 years. The same old song and dance. The same thing happened. I mean, how many times is Charlie Brown going to just miss the football?
Yeah, I agree with you. As long as Lucy keeps pulling it up, I am, it's great to see you, by the way. And I just can't express the appreciation I have. Viewers who started out very young. I mean, you're a family man now, and you work for a living, and you do all kinds of things that real people do. And I know that it's hard for people at the time that I do this program to participate.
Well, that's what you said yesterday really struck me when you said, I think it was you bask in winning and not like a jock thing that, hey, I can beat you up or, I can throw a football further, but I can be a business person. I can do something better than most people and make a career out of it or have a family. Like those are the kind of things that I've chosen to make myself happy with, not the Browns. I mean that thing yesterday was just like the same old song and dance, and I feel so bad. But it's like when you were saying yesterday, how could you expect anything different? You would have been shocked if they won. You would have been shocked if they were 2-0. But I wanted to bring your spirits up. How about the Guardians? How about what they're doing?
It's wonderful. And another win today, 11-4. And I watched that game from start to finish. And they got up on them. And again, the Twinkies made a little run at them. But 2 3-run home runs. And you can't beat that kind of production. If we had more of that, we'd have a better record than what we have.
Right. Shoestring budget, too. What, third lowest in baseball? And
absolutely.
They do it. And the difference between the Browns and Cleveland, the Indians or Guardians, whatever you want to call them, is that they outsmart everyone. Every move they make is a chess piece move where they can outsmart teams. They can outsmart the Padres and get a haul of players. They can outsmart the Mets and not only give you a guy in Lindor that you could have signed, a year after we traded him. We got arguably the best second baseman in baseball right now, who's 22 or who's 23. And we got a shortstop who's hitting the cover off the ball, too. I mean, you'd argue any one of those two guys you probably would have taken for Lindor. We got them both. And you could probably argue that both of them, obviously for the money they're making, we would take over Lindor for $30 million in a heartbeat. Plus Ramirez, the guy who actually took a pay cut to stay in Cleveland, who wants to play in this city. This guy, I can't say enough about how highly I think of Ramirez. He's probably given up $70 million just to play in Cleveland.
Some people would say that he's a fool for doing it, but right? I know what you're saying. It gets and a lot of what's happening with the Browns, and it's a problem, is that you have fans who want to point fingers, and D-Cup Toe Juice, who's very emotional, is saying we have to start with Stefanski because he didn't take the win. All he had to do was tell Chubb to stay in bounds and then take 4 knees, and we win the game.
That's loser talk.
Not only that, the thing that bothers me about this particular point of view is that you're assuming that nothing would happen in the exchanges in the 4 snaps. There is no such thing as an automatic win. And I know that, so we would be the first team who, put the ball down on the ground and the team scooped it up and ran it all the way in for a touchdown and then got the onside kick and then scored the points to win the game. I have a much more balanced approach to this because I am a problem solver from my previous life. I don't, the Sunday show is great to sit there and rant and rave, and that's wonderful. But I'm a problem solver, and I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, and I put myself into the owner's chair, and I say, what would I do if this situation, was in front of me? And getting on Kevin Stefanski for a situation where he gave his team what should have been a 14-point lead with 1:57 left to go in the game. And in the heat of the moment, Nick Chubb broke a tackle and went into the end zone. The fact of the matter is nobody told him not to, A, and B, being up by what should have been 14, not 13, but even 13 with 1:57 to go with the team you're playing having no timeouts. That's not why you lost the game, D-Cup. That's not the reason why the team lost. I'm going to tell you the reason why the team lost, but I'm going to go about it in a more sensible way than still pointing fingers and just saying, this is why it happened. It was because of Kevin Stefanski. What I'm going to tell you is this, and it took a while for me to sit back, calm down, and think about this. And what I'll tell you is this. If you hire a first-time coach like Kevin Stefanski, who was an offensive coordinator, who never in his life did anything except when he was in college, I think he played defensive back, but he is an offensively oriented guy who's a very organized guy who has a specific scheme that he employs. He calls all the plays. He does not let his offensive coordinator call the plays, and he formulated the playbook. Okay? So he is a specialist. When you hire a specialist, and if you can say he's a good specialist or not, a good specialist. Well, he's a specialist because he's been an offensive coordinator, and that's his side of the ball. You've got to hire an experienced defensive coordinator. The mistake is not Kevin Stefanski's mistake. It is the front office's mistake. If you take a guy who has no defensive coordination background, nothing but offense in his background coaching wise, and you put him on the field and you say to him, we want you to call the plays. We want you to take charge. AVP will be your offensive coordinator, but he's not going to call the plays. This is your domain. Then you need somebody who's almighty and all powerful on the defensive side of the ball as well. But you hire Joe Woods, and Joe Woods had never really been a defensive coordinator of any success in his life and was a linebackers coach when they plucked him from the 49ers. So right off the bat, what you've done is you have an offensive specialized head coach and a defensive coordinator who is not experienced or seasoned. And that is where the mistake was made initially. And we've seen it ever since Kevin Stefanski took over. To blame Kevin Stefanski for this loss when the offense looked 10 times better than it did the week before, put 30 points, should have been 31, on the board against a Jets team that held the Baltimore Ravens to 24 points. To do what they did, Brissett was extremely efficient. He was accurate. He threw to the right people who were open. He put the ball on the numbers. He did everything that he was supposed to do until the very last, offensive play of the game for the Browns. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But Jacoby Brissett did his job. The offense did its job. The running backs and running game, offensive line, all did their jobs. I'm not going to point the finger at Kevin Stefanski because go ahead.
I was going to say it's the first time in the history of football that somebody blamed a team for scoring for losing.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to have a hate case against somebody to do that in the first place. And I'd be the first to admit that Stefanski is pedantic. I would be the first one to say that he is not the most creative guy in the world, and he's just kind of a grinder, and he's an analytics-based guy, and he's not the most exciting personality in the world. But I'm not going to blame him for this. I blame the front office for this.
I've got to run. It was good seeing you. I just want to check in and say, don't be totally down, all you Cleveland fans. You have this team right down the road who's playing their behinds off right now, and youngest team in baseball, and they're doing pretty damn good right now. And I would say this: put Stephen Kwan on that coverage. I guarantee you, he falls down or hurts himself trying to defend that play. Put that kid. That kid will run.
Oh, he'll dive into the stands. He'll dive into walls. He'll dive on the ground head first. He'll do whatever. What a ball player!
Coverage. I guarantee you that doesn't happen.
John, God bless, and Jim Terry says God bless to you too.
EIFL.
Take care, and thanks for stopping by. That's wonderful. Teacup, D-Cup, I'm not buying into this particular argument. But what I will say is we've established a front office problem, and when I identify a problem, it's important that something be done right away. We saw the same signs of this in previous years with Joe Woods, and the issue was not addressed. And now in the first 2 weeks of this season, it has come back to bite us in the ass. Here's the deal. Whose coverage was it? Was it Delpit's coverage, or was it Denzel Ward's coverage? One thing that I can tell you, and it's probably one of the most difficult things to have to read after a game, the whole thing about, the Browns had a 99.9 chance of winning, and that 0.01 came through and they lost, and only the Browns. Well, let me remind you that there are people who die, people who are standing in the wrong place at the wrong time in a drive-by shooting who die, who had a 99.9% chance of surviving that day, who didn't do it. So get your priorities squared away. I mean, this is not something that is some curse against the Cleveland Browns. This is what happens to organizations that are not glued together too tight and have a problem. I can fix the problem, but I'm not hired by the Cleveland Browns to fix their problem. But I do have a podcast, and I can tell them what they need to do. Right now, the players aren't exactly sure how to handle this situation. They know damn well who fucked up. They know who blew coverages. But what I'm going to tell you is the real menace of this situation. The quote from Joe Flacco is, and I'm finding it here. All right, here's the 66-yard pass. When I threw it, it was like, oh my gosh, no one is anywhere near him. It was really a weird feeling because of how quiet it got in there. Obviously, we're in Cleveland, so it makes sense. But that feeling was something I'd never felt before, how quiet it actually got out there. All right. So this is how his confidence was growing. Flacco. Once with the onside kick, what he said was, when I saw us recover the onside kick, I knew we were going to score. I knew we were going to get the game. And here's the quote for the final touchdown that was thrown to Garrett Wilson. When offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur called the play through my headset, I had a smile inside, Flacco said. That's one of our staples. Their safeties were tight, but they were playing pretty soft. Then he stopped and said they were playing so soft that I was throwing that ball no matter what. Quote unquote. It wasn't just to your eye or my eye that we were playing soft. And we can't say that every player was defying the defensive coordinator. We can't say that. A surprise visit by my friend Derek.
Oh, hello.
Hi. So let me finish this thought, Derek. So we're all playing extremely loose, soft defense in the secondary. And all of the players are doing the same thing. So they all couldn't have misunderstood Joe Woods. Keep the play in front of you. Keep the play in front of you. An overreaction to what had happened on the play before with the 66-yard pass. Don't let anyone get behind you. Don't let anyone. And so basically the players were frozen statues. We have to move on and find an experienced defensive coordinator. And this will do two things, by the way. For one thing, it will put the black hand of death on Stefanski, the pressure on him to say, look, we're about winning. This is an all-in situation. We told you this when we got Deshaun Watson. This is a win-now situation. And your friend, Joe Woods, is killing us. We can't win with him. And we can't keep him any longer because by the time Watson comes back to play, which just to play out the end of this year, he's going to be healthy and ready to play next year. And we have to have a real defensive plan in place. What I would advise the Browns to do, and I would hope that they're on the phone scouring anybody who has experience and who is a real experienced, seasoned defensive coordinator who understands how to communicate with players. Because even Kevin Stefanski, with his offensive background, was given a great offensive line coach in Callahan, who was seasoned and knew how to coach that scheme. He needs that on the defensive side of the ball as well. And the sooner the better. And I would send Joe Woods walking to send a message to players who are not accepting accountability and responsibility. All of this is the way a real good business is run. And I'm not saying the Browns are a real good business, but that's the facts. So as soon as I had my man on the line, I would get a deal cut. And I would make sure that before too many more games go by, that Joe Woods will no longer be the defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. And good luck to him. I hope he finds a position somewhere in football, if that's what he wants to continue to do, that he's fit to do. He's not fit to be a defensive coordinator. He failed in Denver as a defensive coordinator, and he's failed miserably in Cleveland. It's time on. And we need somebody who's seasoned because Stefanski knows nothing about defense whatsoever. And we have to leave him in his bailiwick, that his domain, which is the offensive side of the ball. So that's the first important thing, and it's the most important thing, because there is accountability in all businesses. And when you don't do your job, when you don't communicate with players, if the players don't understand what they're supposed to do, it's one of two things. It's either that the coach is not explaining it to them, or they're not salvageable players. We've drafted these young men. We know that Newsome and Denzel Ward have to be better than this. And Joe Woods has a history the last couple of years of just playing soft defenses at the worst possible time. He just doesn't have the knack. So that's that. Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, yeah. That was it was almost unexplainable. I mean, I'm sure you've talked a lot about it, but for me being there, it was just like, all right, great, up 13. We're going to be 2-0. Like, great. This is awesome. Jacoby played well. Defense was not great all day, but you know what? At least we won. And then all of a sudden it fell apart, and I just could not believe it. We sat in our seats probably 30 minutes after the game was over, and I had to literally just kind of go through it over and over because I just couldn't understand. I mean, I literally just couldn't comprehend how in a minute 30 or whatever you blow 13 points. And it's unbelievable. It's like what ESPN put out. We had a 99.9% chance, and we're the 0.1% that could blow it. Like it was.
Well, but again, I'm giving you examples of things of people who end up with forms and diseases when they're children that less than 1% of the population would get, and they end up dying from it. And statistics, fuck statistics and fuck analytics and says and fuck what they dredge up. That isn't the issue. The issue is Stefanski did not lose this game by not taking a knee. The defense, the defensive coordinator totally choked it.
Exactly.
Totally choked it.
I'll tell you this. I mean, you know me. I love Garrett Wilson. I've watched him forever, but
sure,
he looked like Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
I was watching him all day, and he was just wide open
running
lot
free
of times. And you just mentioned it. At the end of the listen, I'm so sick and tired of everybody pretending like there's blame to go other places. The offense and that entire offensive side of the football, you cannot blame. There's absolutely no blame to be had. Your backup quarterback played very, very well.
Yep.
For Joe Woods, here's another thing, and you mentioned it as well. Why is it that it's not just, it'd be different if it was just Delpit or if it was just Newsome who was messing up, that'd be one thing. It's your entire secondary.
Yep.
Your entire secondary now 2 weeks back to back in the fourth quarter has blown leads. And we saw this all last year.
Yep.
Of these random just blown coverages. And everybody's like, oh, it's miscommunication. We'll get it figured out. Well, here we are now. We're on to week 3. And you now have 2 full off seasons of the same group of players. It's not like we got 3-4 new players. No, it's the same group in the secondary, and you're having the miscommunications. That tells me, I mean, obviously it's on the players to some extent because they're the ones on the field, but it comes down to coaching. I mean, the secondary coach and Joe Woods needs to be gone. Because if you're going to be successful at all this season, you have to win these games. The Jets are not a good football team. And
nope.
Yes, the officiating was terrible. And that is one of the things I sent to you over Twitter. I mean, they were just missing things left and right. But that's to be expected. You can't. I
don't think it favored one team or the other. I mean,
no,
we're really, we're in a position to easily win that football game, and it took a remarkable meltdown in order for what happened to happen. But the meltdown happens for a reason, and there are real causes. And to start panicking and start pointing your fingers at Nick Chubb, for God's sakes.
Oh, it's laughable.
I mean, you got to be stupid to do something like that. But take it from use my 65 years of wisdom, for God's sakes, and take my word for it when I say that we all make mistakes in business, okay? I did not make big mistakes. I made some small mistakes, but I did not make big mistakes, because the big mistakes are the ones that really drive the knife through you. And I'm extremely good at quickly analyzing what problems are. And the players at this point, the longer Joe Woods stays, the more they're protecting Joe Woods, the more they're trying to protect one another, and their confidence is waning. And C.O. Dead, the problem with dumping Joe Woods is you're promoting his understudy. That's not what the fuck I said. So please, I mean, again, it's bad enough that we have Mary Kay Cabot leading the brigade as far as yellow journalism to get people all riled up. It doesn't help anybody to get riled up. We were riled up yesterday on game day, and you saw what I was like when I was riled up. But I've had a day to think about it, and this is what I do. And the bottom line is, you can't throw out the dirty water until you have clean water. Please understand the words that I'm saying. You cannot just fire somebody if you have no apt replacement. What I said to you is that there should, after week 1, have been feelers being put out already, because we saw this in years past as well, and it's happening all over again. They've got to be on the phone looking for some kind of an experienced defensive coordinator, somebody who can communicate the ideas to his players. Joe Woods is not a good communicator. He doesn't make the people on his side of the ball better. He makes them worse.
And I'll tell you one thing that you won't see on TV that I noticed. The body language of all the guys, you know what I'm saying, especially in the secondary, they were just lost. Like, I constantly saw them looking at one another, almost, I don't want to say guessing, but you know what I'm talking about, that look of like, oh, you got that, right? Oh, well, you know what I mean? Like, just that's a lot of what I saw as well. And then to your point, Prefer's got to go as well. I mean, what has Mike Prefer done to keep his job?
And that's the other thing. I mean, obviously, we were set up for a different onside kick than they performed, and kudos to their special teams, their entire special teams. The thing that bothered me most about it is that they had a 4-on-3 advantage, the side that they kicked it on, which improved the odds of them getting that. And Amari Cooper is a frontline player, and he don't want to be out there on the hands team diving in on special teams. It was obvious to me, and after what I showed at the beginning of the show, it should be obvious to everybody that this is not something he relished doing, and that all he had to do was dive for the football earlier because he had a head start and just knock the ball out of bounds. That's all the hell he had to do. Let it go 10 yards, knock it out of bounds. But instead he stood there. He froze. And he didn't want to go in because he didn't want to get hit. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth. But why are we outcoached? Why did we think it was going to the right side? And when the advantage was all on the left side of the field? There's a series of things. If I saw that lineup, I would sure as hell have called a timeout. I would have said, what the hell? And if you don't have a timeout, well, then you pick the wrong formation. The bottom line is that the mistakes are being made over and over and over again. We've not had a successful special teams. For the first time, kickoff returns, Ford looked like he knew what he was doing. He at least knew how to run to a spot and pick up speed.
Felton is horrible.
Felton is horrible is right. Thing. He looks like a guy who can't catch a fly ball.
I mean, there's one thing I understand. Returning is tough because your eyes are in the air. You're trying to catch the ball and you got guys running towards you. But man, you could see it all over Demetric Felton. He would just every time it's just nerves, and he just does not know what he's doing. And why we continue to throw him out there is literally setting you up for failure, because every time that ball was kicked to him, I was expecting him to drop it or a fumble or something, just based on even the body language that he had.
Yes, that's right. I mean, and the one time when he looked like he wanted a fair catcher, but he ran away from it.
Yeah.
I mean, no, he's not confident at all back there. Not at all. And that's obvious.
And why, I'm sure you've probably talked about it already, but Denzel Ward, we've said this how many times on this program? You have corners who succeed the absolute best in man coverage, and you're trying to force them to be zone corners. And, Ward's got to take some blame. He was not good yesterday. Yesterday. Not good. But at the same time, if you're going to be successful and you want to be the best your team can be on defense, put your guys in the best situation to succeed. Like, that's not a hard concept.
I don't know Jason Campbell from a hole in the wall, to be very honest with you. He probably failed as a head coach, I'm imagining. And the problem with defensive coordinators is that they can be good defensive coordinators, take a guy like Romeo Crennel, and miserable head coaches. You need, and nobody talks about, the great Bill Belichick, who, by the way, is under 500 without Tom Brady. All right. So make no mistake about the fact that Hall of Fame coaching guy is a 500 coach if it wasn't for one player. All right. Just be aware of that. And in a whole different organization won a Super Bowl with that quarterback. And New England hasn't sniffed anything since. But nobody talked about the fact that Belichick had this guy as an offensive coordinator because he didn't know shit about offense. And this year going in, you wonder why, they barely beat the Steelers and they're not putting any points on the board. It's because Belichick really hasn't named an offensive coordinator per se who's calling the plays and doing what they're supposed to do. And that means that Belichick himself is doing it, and he's happy in 17-14 games. The problem with defensive coordinators is, as a rule of thumb, they make really bad head coaches. And in a lot of cases, they have limitations like Marty Schottenheimer, may he rest in peace, shortcomings that, well, we're going to leave it under the defense's hands to win this game. And then you have the drive and the fumble and everything else. This is what happens. So you need, and to say that Jason Cable is elite, we need experience. We need somebody who knows how to do that job. And just like a guy like Callahan, he knows where his place is. He's an older fella. He's employed. He's knowledgeable. He communicates. That's what we need on the defensive side of the ball, not somebody who has ambitions to be a head coach. So again, that isn't a criteria. I'm trying to make sense of some things. D-Cup, end of your story. He's been put in timeout because people who are stubborn, who don't listen to sense, are just as stupid as players who don't pay attention to what they're supposed to pay attention to during the prep lead into games. I don't know what the situation is with our defenders. I just know that there's a commonality. They can't agree on what coverage they were in. And the fact that Delpit couldn't even tell us what the coverage was and Denzel Ward could tells me something. And I saw on at least two other occasions where Delpit totally not only lost his man, but laid way too much cushion, and immediately after tackling turned to look to his teammate, in one case JJ, and start blaming him. I mean, to me, Delpit is a guy who looks like a head case, and I keep an eye on this guy because you're getting torn to shreds, and there's one play where a ball's thrown incomplete toward your guy, and he starts, lipping off. Shut up and play the fucking game. It's a problem.
To me, the problem is Joe Woods. Wants to run this heavy zone. The entire secondary is supposed to be in zone every single play, and none of these guys know who's passing off to who, who has what spot. It's like Denzel saying, I had the flat, you know what I'm saying? Then he gets burned, and it's like, well, somebody's got to be responsible, and if each guy thinks they have something they don't, and it's a total disaster. And again, this is not the first time we've seen this. We've seen this over the course of last year and now over the course of the first two games this year. It's a Joe Woods problem. If it was a player's problem, you would know by now because it wouldn't be all of the players having issues.
Yeah, and it is funny. Tom Hawley brings up a good point. I think somebody in the telecast either thought this guy was cute or he's related to somebody. The offensive coordinator who for the Jets, and they were losing the whole game. He had more camera time than anybody on the broadcast. It was really that was a little bit peculiar. I'll agree with that. And again, this is not going to get you anywhere, Hector. The team's culture stinks. Well, the culture on the offense didn't stink, did it, Hector? They scored 30, should have been 31 points. Cade York doesn't understand why the ball moved right on him. I don't either. But 30 points beats the Jets. It isn't that the team's culture stinks. It's that one side of the ball is confused, doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. If you look at week one with Brissett, who had never had the opportunity to play in this scheme, to week two, somebody knows what they're doing offensively.
Oh, yeah.
So
he looked good.
I mean, a night and day difference. He used his legs, but he is getting up slower and slower.
Yeah.
And that's a little nerve-wracking.
I will tell you, when he got hurt, or at least it was that knee or whatever, I watched him coming over to the sideline, and they put up the blue tent, but he didn't go in it. So I don't know if it was just just banged up, but he is getting banged up here and there, and one of these times that's going to add up.
He ain't going to get up one time. And this is beyond Joe Woods. Now you're just becoming like a lunatic fringe, okay? This is like conspiracy theory. No, the exact problem is Joe Woods. It is the defense. That is the whole problem. And the more you, just sensationalize things, that you throw out the whole thing that you've worked this hard for to get to this point, and long before you have a chance to even play Deshaun Watson. So, Hector, you're 100% wrong in this. 100% wrong.
Hey, I want to respond to what Double P says here. So
sure.
he said miscommunication among the players is the problem, not the DC. If you want to blame the coach for the miscommunication, I disagree. Players need to play what's called. Here's what I will say to you there, Double P. The problem that you're talking about is as if the players know what's called. Okay, that's I think where you're wrong here. The players do not understand what is being called. They are guessing. They're being told something and they're guessing what their job is. I mean, it was blatantly clear because, nobody knew where they were supposed to be. So you can say it's on the players, but if the players don't know their job to begin with, and again, it's not just one or two people, it's the unit, that goes back on the coach. Exactly. And it's what CO says here. Miscommunication doesn't happen when the coordinator's coordinating properly. Your guys have to know their jobs first before they can do them. I mean, that's just what it is.
All right. CO Dead's asking a question he wants me to address. Why won't anyone address what I'm saying here? 1, fire Joe Woods. His less experienced understudy takes the job. Well, first of all, Joe Woods is not experienced as a defensive coordinator. Let's make this clear. He inherited a really good Denver defense and ran it into the ground in the one season that he was there. He was a linebackers coach before that, and he became a linebackers coach again for the 49ers. So your premise is flawed. He was not an experienced defensive coordinator. For all practical purposes and intents, he was a first time, second time after failing the first time defensive coordinator. All right. The second choice is to bring in an external defensive coordinator and have to fire the entire staff. Well, see, I don't know where you have this pink slip thing. Let me explain to you how business is done. I'm assuming that you don't know. I walk into a business that I purchase and I get to meet all of the employees and I work with them for a period of time. I see who the hard workers are. I see who the steady eddies are, and I probably see a few people who are shirking their responsibilities and their duties, and they're not really putting out and working very hard. This notion that a new owner comes into a business or whatever and pink slips everybody is the mentality that is unfortunately prevalent in our society because we're overly reactionary, but that's not the way good business is done. Why would an entire staff be fired just because Joe Woods couldn't do the job? His staff is trying to learn how to get better so that they become a defensive coordinator, and it ain't going to happen with Joe Woods. You have to be able to sell your people, CO Dead, on what you're doing. You can't just be arbitrary and pink slip people and just say, you gone. That's it. That's horseshit. That doesn't, and you can do it if you want to flex your muscles, but you won't be successful. So that's the answer to your question. Your entire premise is flawed. The answer is you should be trying to find an experienced guy and explain to him that you have some understudies underneath from Joe Woods because we're playing a 4-3 and we're going to continue to play a 4-3. That's the deal. We're set up to play a 4-3. We have Clowney, who's not going to play against Pittsburgh. We have Myles Garrett, and we run a 4-3 scheme. We've done well against the run. That's what we do here. We hire a defensive coordinator who's experienced and seasoned in running the 4-3 scheme. This isn't hard to figure out. But you sit down with this guy, and when you decide to hire him, and he sits down with every single person, every, as you put them, less experienced understudy, and says, we're going to continue doing what we're doing. We're just going to do it better. And here's how we're going to do it better. And, basically it's an opportunity for everybody to sit back and learn. I refuse to believe that the understudies of Joe Woods learned a goddamn thing except how to lose your job. That's all they learned. So there's the answer to your question. I hope it helps you.
And it's not that our defensive scheme as a whole is bad as far as like the personnel that we have. We do have guys that fit our scheme. It's just not being executed properly, and the message is not being known by anybody. So like you're saying, if you bring in somebody who understands the 4-3, the 4-2, you know what I mean? If you bring in somebody who understands that and can just simply execute it and for a little while make things simple for guys to know their spots, I guarantee you this defense is going to be turned around. We got to stop pretending like these guys are idiots.
There was no coverage.
No.
You saw the end of the game. The last scoring play for the Jets, Koromoa just watched Garrett Wilson just prance right by him to an open spot on the field. They were just standing on their heels. They weren't even on their toes. They weren't, they weren't in a position to jump anything.
No.
And they were only rushing 4 people. And again, when you start the game, and thanks for your opinion, Coach Wilson, I appreciate it. When you start out with a defensive coordinator who comes up with a scheme to rush 4 and not blitz a 37-year-old quarterback who in his last game was hit 11 times, sacked 3 times, and held to 3 points.
Without their 2 starting tackles.
That's right. And that's what his decision was. He's gone. In my mind, he's gone.
He should.
You just have to move on him. Sorry. And does that mean we're going to become Super Bowl contenders? No. But you have to solve problems as problems emerge. And you have to be smart enough to understand the difference between a bad plan and a bad employee. And all you finger pointers don't understand the nuances of business. There are a lot of people who work in places that aren't run very well who could be fantastic employees in another environment. My job was not to buy radio stations per se. It was to change an environment. I couldn't afford expensive radio stations. I bought low, I sold high. I came into situations where things were depressed in the building. And I found every single time, that there were employees who felt terrible about things. They didn't agree with decisions that were being made that didn't make any sense. In one situation, a general manager was sleeping with another one of the corporate people. In another one, guy was flashing his Rolex watch around, the manager of the station, and playing footsie with one of the sales girls. And this destroys the morale in a building. You have to start treating business like business. It's sacred. It's serious. You don't shit where you eat. And this is what hurts me more than anything else. And John Brown was right when he said, I was talking about winning, and I wasn't talking about winning like, hey, I'm Mr. Jock, I'm going to go out and win every time. That isn't it. In the end result, you either won or you lost. It doesn't mean you're the best ever. You do the best that you can. But in the end, if you make more right decisions than you make wrong decisions, and you make the big decisions correctly, winning is everything. In business, when you have family money on your shoulders, it motivates you to make good decisions. Take my word for it. And if I could impart one thing to people, is that I was bred to win. And I would go to any length to push myself to whatever extremes that I could mentally to win. This is why I analyze problems with the Browns, and I say, you may find that Stefanski isn't the guy. You may be right. That's not the looming problem right now. We're in the middle of a fucking season. If this continues at this rate, we're going to get the 30-point whoopings put on us. You know that, Derek, don't you?
Well, yeah. Look at the early part of the schedule. What did we say? The first 4 games, you have got to find a way to win. When you play the Panthers, Jets, Falcons, Steelers without TJ Watt now and Najee Harris hurt and a terrible Mitch Trubisky, you have to win those games. If you want to be 500 or higher, you have to win those games, and you blow it this way because of the same stuff. Just, you think this is bad. What did I say? Garrett Wilson looked like Devontae Adams, the best receiver in the league. And this is a rookie. This is a rookie receiver I'm talking about. If this is what you're getting against him, what are you going to get when you play the better teams on your schedule? What is Stephon Diggs going to put up? What is Josh Allen going to do to you?
Yep.
What's Tom Brady going to do to you?
Absolutely on the same page. And, this is the thing that I don't understand, the preconceived notions. I don't know what your business background is, but there probably isn't any. So you're bringing in an external defensive coordinator who's supposed to use Joe Wood's staff the rest of the season. Give me a break. Who in their right mind walks into that job? An unemployed person, you stupid fuck. I'm sorry to be rude. But if he's not working, he can put himself in a position with Deshaun Watson behind the offense, a coach who's offensive minded with great running backs, a great offensive line and his job will be to do the whole defensive job. Are you kidding me? Who's gonna take that job?
With talent on defense too, let's stop pretending like this defense.
All the drafting that we did to get people who are competent people. There are a lot of people who would take the job. Jesus, stop with the stupidity already. Goodness gracious. Yeah, and this is kind of funny that Flacco has won so many games against the Browns. It is funny. But, we let him win because we didn't even rush him. The few times that we got near him, he was stripped. One time he threw off his back foot and threw a ball 10 yards over the receiver's head. no, we did that for him. And I don't know. That's just all part and parcel of bad decision making on the part of the defensive coordinator.
Hey, if you want any good news from the day, one bright thing for the future is I loved what I saw out of Alex Wright. He looks very, very good for being a fourth round rookie, whatever he is for us. I thought he looked pretty good. And also, by the way, hey, you want to talk about positives? Amari Cooper and Jacoby being on the same page finally after Cooper was open all week last week. That's great. We'll have a pass game if that continues.
Here we have a lot of negative Nellies, you know. You're telling me that Saleh became the head coach of the Jets? There's always somebody to take a job. You get into a position and you make a name for yourself. I mean, come on. Look, I mean, there are people who took the Jaguars job, and look what they did. They just whooped all over the who was it they whipped? The Eagles? No.
Colts.
The Colts. Yeah. Yeah. And you think they're looking great with Ryan as quarterback up there? He's an old man, and he's playing like an old man now, right? Up in Indianapolis.
I haven't seen any of the Colts this year.
Matt Ryan has been like pathetic.
Has he?
Like should be in a walker. Absolutely. I mean, but you know, after the mess that Urban Meyer made out of the Jaguars, somebody was there to take the job. You know, yeah. You don't think anyone's going to join this team. Wake up. I addressed this in the beginning of the show, Snick. So I am a responsible broadcaster, and I know when I go over the edge. So that's the beginning of the program.
Oh, believe me, nothing you could have said today or yesterday, it would be worse than the sight that I saw after that game. I've never seen so much just depression and anger in my life. It's a miracle I got home, to be honest with you.
What was it you saw?
Oh, just angry, depressed people everywhere. I mean, people were fighting and just.
Well, this is what we're getting in the chat room from people. It's way overly emotional.
Here's what I want you guys to understand, and this kind of woke things up to me. And y'all didn't see it. I saw it, so maybe it's more disturbing to me. I walked out of that stadium, and I saw a man blackout drunk on the ground. His body was shaking, and he was in tears. And I walked by that, and I'm like, you know what? This is what we put up with? Like, this is the kind of effects that this team has on us. You know, that poor guy, I mean, I really do. I hope he's okay. You know, I thought about him this morning on my way to work just because it was so disturbing. But it's like, as a fan base, this is what this team does to us, and you don't care enough to replace a defensive coordinator who sucked for 2 years, and we're going to fight about that? Like,
well, again, Double P, love you to death, you know that. But I'm telling you that I watched people who worked for companies that were run into the ground, and we would turn around businesses, and those people just wanted to be heard. They wanted to be listened to. I know what it looks like. You're saying, well, the players, if there's a miscommunication, it's not the coach, it's the players. No. It's that the players don't know what they're supposed to do, or that nobody's going to crack down on them to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. It's the responsibility of that person's department. That's the bottom line. So let's bring Bronk in here real quick before we get out of here. I wanted to hear from Bronk.
Well, I guess we have to make predictions for Thursday.
I guess you're right. By the way, I guess Tomlin has said that he is going to be patient with Trubisky and the offense. Basically, that means what he sees is a soft Cleveland defense.
Yep.
And what he sees, he's smacking his lips.
Oh, God,
He's ready for a win because he's going to come in and he's going to have his guys whipped into a frenzy and they're going to kick the shit out of us. And that's what's going to happen. And all we're going to be doing is trying to defend ourselves against the stupidity that happened the week before. And he's not going to need a lot of points. And they will injure Jacoby Brissett if they can, because that's the way he coaches. So he's not going to put Pickett out there exposed as a rookie at this point in time. He's going to let Trubisky get whatever he can get. And he figures that if he looks and stares like the black cow of death into the eyes of the Cleveland Browns, that they'll fold. And I got to tell you, he might be right.
Wow. I think, well, yesterday I would have said we were going to get ass raped on Thursday. Today, I'm thinking that it's a night game, and it's going to be much cooler there, and it's the Steelers, and our team might be just as motivated as their team. And it's only going to be like 60 degrees. I think we play awful in warm weather games. I think this is the best the offense has played in a warm weather game yesterday. But defense, we're bad because Garrett, he can't, because of his illnesses, he can't play in warm weather games. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it'll probably be, both teams will be well in the 30s. I don't know who's going to win. It'll probably come down to who's got the better kicker. And Pittsburgh historically has always had the better kicker.
Well, it's interesting. You see a game in the 30s, and what I see is every effort that the Steelers will bring early to remind the Browns that they're in for an ass kicking. And when a shaken opponent comes into your town to play, you take advantage of it. And and that's the whole thing about the Steelers. That's how they get over. That's what they do.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think that everybody's on the hot seat. The coaches certainly are. The defense certainly is. And the ownership and the front office are. So if they can't get motivated for the Steelers on a Thursday night international game, then we're really going to have a horrible year, and the Texans going to really enjoy our top draft picks. This is such a big game. I mean, I said before the Jets game that I felt that it was a trap game, and I was the one worried about us. I still predicted us to win, but I was worried about that game, a big deal. And I did say the Jets would be leading at some point and hoped it wasn't at the end of the game. So
Hey,
I think we're going to score. There's going to be scoring happening Thursday.
Hey, Bronk, to your point, you know what this kind of feels like to me? This feels like the opening to the 2020 season. If you'll remember, we got destroyed on the road against the Ravens, turned around
Correct.
and then played the Bengals early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then after that, we were finally like, okay, maybe we're not going to suck.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel for this game. As terrible as that ended, I mean, you have the opportunity here to turn things around quick, and you kind of have to.
Well, the
Because
big
if
thing
you
is
don't,
Brissett. Yeah, Brissett, he's got confidence now. You said that.
yeah.
I mean, what part of yesterday's game would have hurt Brissett's confidence? None of it. So,
He was great, and that's why it was so disappointing, because everybody in that stadium thought that game was going to end on a Cade York field goal again to win. Everybody. And then Brissett, he threw a pick, but you can't blame Brissett.
Well, I think you guys were going to talk about that. We never got around to it. So
What the pass? The pass was, for me, the problem that I saw on the play, looking from a panoramic point of view, was the best thing that the best outcome they could have expected would have been to throw underneath about 8 to 10 yards so that the guy would have had a 62-yard field goal.
Yeah.
Because you saw when they tried to press the ball further down the field, there was somebody who knew how to play his own defense, knew what his coverage was, and stepped in front of it.
Yeah.
He was throwing to Amari Cooper, and he just didn't see the defender.
See the guy. Yeah.
And that's how that happens. And it happens because he probably had no idea that he would be forced to go out in the field with 22 seconds left and no timeouts behind. He had no reason to believe that. So I'm not holding him like a gun to his head for doing that. But if it were me, I mean, I looked at other places and, you know, the amazing multi-million-dollar man, tight end, the Chief was open, and even Donovan Peoples-Jones, you know, if they could have thrown an 8 to 10 yard pass over the middle and just called that final timeout, you know, or spiked the ball or whatever, it would have been a 62-yard field goal. You have to try to win that game.
Just give him a chance. Just give Cade York the chance. That's what I was saying. It's like, you don't need to get to the 30. You know, this is not like old kickers. I mean, if he misses, so be it. At least you tried. You know what I'm saying? And we would have been pissed regardless. But if you can get it in his range, you know what I mean? And he's got a long range. Trust me, even outside of his range is a chance with the strength that he's got on that leg.
Yeah.
You have that chance. And we didn't even give him the opportunity. And that's what hurts the most. It's not even that you lost. It's just how. It's just how.
The thing about York is that he's never going to miss short. It's either going to be right or it's going to go left. It's never going to fall, 10 yards in front of the thing.
I know you're probably wanting to end this move, but can y'all tell me on the missed extra point? I turned my head away for a second and I missed it.
Yep.
Wow.
Was it blocked?
No, I mean, it was a very strange thing. It left his foot and it just veered right.
Did he kick the laces or something?
Golf shot, bad golf shot, really.
He did not understand. He said it felt right when he hit it and that it just veered right. And he was really pissed off about it, to tell you the truth. And I've never seen his ball go that way before, but it could be any number of things. It could have been placed in a divot on the field that changed the spin of the ball and set it off that way. It could have been the hold as far as the laces on the ball. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, field goal kicking is not all that different from penalty kicking in soccer. And you can slip on your run up. You can pull a divot out. You can do all sorts of things. And, anything can happen on those kicks.
As far as my prediction, I'm going to say the Steelers beat the Browns 27-13. It will be a clear-cut victory for the Steelers, and the Browns are going to have to, again, when something's staring at you in the face, you'll be amazed how often it will come up over and over and over again. And I don't want the team to lose, but I would rather, the team isn't going to make the playoffs anyway. Not with Jacoby Brissett. This is not a playoff caliber team. What I would say is this. The Steelers aren't either. The Bengals, you're seeing what I told you about Zach Taylor.
Yep, he's terrible.
Again, you have you're drafting, you're getting players, but, the guy at the top is just confused and doesn't know what he's doing. And it doesn't surprise me that the Bengals have kind of started off the way they've started off. And everyone's talking about the Browns, but the Ravens.
Yeah. How about that?
Just so totally collapsed. Yeah. So defensively, Harbaugh's team defensively collapsed. I mean, they were ahead. I mean, my God, I want to say that they were ahead.
About 28 points, I think they were ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And to have Tua, of all people, just pull the trigger and light you up like that. Wow.
Well, that wasn't the only game, too. I mean, the Cardinals-Raiders, the Cardinals came back from the dead.
Crazy ending.
I don't know whether you saw that 2-point conversion that Kyler Murray ran 90 yards to eventually run in and score the game-winning 2 points or
Was
whatever it
that the
was.
play he danced around at the line of scrimmage forever and then ran?
Yeah,
it in?
20 seconds he ran. He ran for 20
That is
seconds.
insane.
Yeah,
That is nuts.
I mean, yeah, and this is what's funny. You're just being goofy. You come
That's
here
not
and you
gonna
shit
happen.
all over the team for an hour and 20 minutes, and then you make this pick so you can come back and shit on them again.
It's going to be a close game. It's not.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a close.
I think everything would point to the fact, except the game is in Pittsburgh, and
No,
we
it's
have
in
No, it's
Cleveland.
here. It's here.
here.
It's here.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
here?
Here.
Yeah, it's in
Oh,
Cleveland.
I'm sorry.
Here.
Well, that might be worse for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I have no idea whether it's better or worse.
Do you know how many people I heard saying, "I'm not going to that effing game Thursday"? But
Yeah,
Hey,
they'll
I-
be there.
I want to say one more thing before we end, and I'm sorry for
Make it
talking,
then 24-20 Pittsburgh. Go ahead.
So Jim, I want to say Giles is his name. Comment
Yeah.
Grant Delpit. So here's what I want to say about Delpit. I agree he does have a lot of problems, and I thought he would. I thought he would be a lot more reliable as a free safety, but I've come to the conclusion, and this is long-term thinking here. We need to have Delpit playing in that Ronnie Harrison role. Because if you're going to have John Johnson here, you need to have Johnson and Delpit playing that up in the box and middle.
Yeah.
And you need to get yourself a rangy, movable, can fly around free safety. And I kind of wish we would have signed Malik Hooker, somebody like him, because Delpit, I love him, but that's not his role. That is just not his role on this team, playing that deep free safety. So
Yeah,
that's the
he's
last
not
thing I wanted to
particularly
say.
not particularly bright either. It would appear. So there you go. There's smarter
Well, and he
people
also
on the
hasn't
team than him.
played. I mean,
Yeah.
what was last year or this year his first full year? I want to
Yeah,
say this year.
I'm not sure how many games he played last year, but he didn't play maybe half of them. I don't know.
All right. Well, I got to get out of here. I just sent the
Super
tweet
rude.
out for the show, for the post game for today's show. So we got to get out of here. But I
It's like
appreciate.
the Moosehead extended play version.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Bronk. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate you making it. I know it's tough with your new work schedule, and
I'm glad you're
thanks.
alive, Derek. I'm glad you lived through
Oh
that.
man, dude. Let's just say this: I will never ever forget. I mean, you want to know how
You
bad
won't.
it is? You want to know how bad it is? I
How bad is it?
dislocated my finger in the Muni
my
lot
God.
playing catch.
Wow.
Like on top of everything else, like just trying to play catch, I got hurt.
Hey, I got to run, guys. If you want to stay in here in the studio, you can
I'm
talk.
going to go. It's after midnight here.
All right. Take care, everybody. And we won't be, I may do a halftime show on Thursday, but there ain't going to be no post game show. I don't stay up that late. And I probably will be so agitated I won't even want to do a halftime show. We'll see come Thursday what happens. But we'll be back again on the air Friday to talk about it. That's for sure. All right.
Boo, boo.
Take care, everybody.
Boo.
All right. Bye-bye. And hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.